Hello, I'm Kayne Tremills and welcome to Splash. Today we're live from the legendary land of Midgard and we're coming face to face with Vikings. We've got some very special guests in the studio today. It's Year 6 from Mullian Public School. Can I hear ya? Now, folks, we are streaming live into your classroom and this is your show, so we want you to send in your questions. We'll do our best to answer those questions as long as they're about Vikings and not about, like, scooters or breakfast. Just doesn't make sense, right? Today, our guest is Dr. Stephen Gapps. He's the curator of an awesome Vikings exhibition at the Australian National Maritime Museum, and he knows a lot about Vikings. Stephen, welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Why Vikings? How do you get interested in Vikings?
Well, as well as being an historian, I'm also a reenactor. So I dress up as Vikings. There's a lot of historical reenactors that interpret Viking history through costume and props that you can see here today.
Wow, it's like a sweet game of dress up.
Oh, yeah?
Well, obviously you can see that I've nailed it when it comes to looking like a Viking, huh? What do you reckon?
I'm not so sure.
What do you mean, what? Why am I not, why?
I don't think they had horns, let alone plastic helmets.
Well, I mean, the $2 store said it was pretty genuine. Viking hat. What did Vikings look like?
Well, something a bit like me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
right, I was expecting a little bit more like armour and...
Yeah, I'm sort of dressed as a Viking, a normal Viking in daily life would look like.
Right.
But we have a gentleman over here called Dirk.
Whoa!
Who is dressed as a Viking warrior.
Look at the sizing. Are you wearing stilts? Look
No.
at the axe and the... Is that mail? Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to my props department after this, because that wasn't it. That's not a Viking. Anyway, so that's what a Viking looks like. So is this all handmade?
Yeah, absolutely. The mail is all hand knitted rings of mail. Basically, someone would have been sitting there just slowly but surely putting them all together, one at a time.
I hope you don't mind me saying, but do all Vikings look as vicious and bloodthirsty as you?
Actually, no.
No.
Most of them actually look like the people behind you. I am kitted out for war. I've got mail, I've got my helm, weapons. I'm a warrior.
Do you guys think that you might be able to make me up as an actual Viking later on?
We'll see what we can do.
We'll see what we
You see what you can do. Let's take some questions from our guys in the audience over here. Who's first? Who we got? Go for it.
How did Vikings bury or dispose of their dead?
Ooh, interesting.
That's an interesting question.
Straight
Dirk,
to it. Straight to it.
Well, basically, once you died, whether it was through combat or through disease or, you know, just basically running out of time span, you would be either buried in a big funeral pyre. Depends on how much money you had and how important you had. You could be put in a boat. They'd send you off to the gods up into the sky. You could just be buried in the ground, just like any normal person would. Sometimes they'd put, stone over it, or sometimes they'd actually make a set of stones around the grave so it looked like it was a ship. You can actually go to some places and it looks like that. Other people would be placed in urns or just basically in the ground.
Right, so there's many ways.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
key point is there was many ways, but it was about your wealth, really, what sort of style
Right, so I
funeral
had
you
no
could have.
idea that Vikings used money as well. So how did you accrue your money? Where did you get that from? Gold?
That's one of the key points of the Viking Age, that the Vikings went raiding overseas and trading overseas as well.
Right.
And they brought back a lot of silver.
Right. All right, let's get another question over here from one of our studio audience.
If I was a Viking child, would I need to learn to read, or what would I learn?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question, because the Viking Age is, it's in that period of history where there isn't much written history available. So a lot about what we know about the Vikings is based on archaeological evidence, because there's a lack of written evidence. Having said that, there were runes. You've probably seen runic inscriptions, and there were some of those around. So Vikings could read and write, some of them who could understand runes, but generally Viking cultures were an oral culture. They told stories, and that's how knowledge was transmitted in much knowledge in the Viking Age.
Right, all right, let's take a look at some of the questions from you guys in the classroom. First one up, we've got were Viking boots like Ugg boots? That's a good question.
Yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes about what we think Vikings look like.
Sure,
and
yeah.
Ugg boots is one of them, horned helmets is the other. No, there's different. It's an interesting point in that in different areas of the Viking cultures. Like they were in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and then they expanded across Europe, and different areas had different styles of clothing. Right. Now, the eastern styles and the northern styles had a lot of fur. Yep. They used a lot of fur, but, you know, most Vikings were just like us. And they didn't really have Ugg boots.
Here's another question from the guys online. Are there any Vikings alive today?
Well, not from the Viking Age. The Viking Age was from the 700s to around 1000 AD, right? And then it sort of changes into the medieval period. Yep. You probably all know that. So all the Vikings from then are dead, but all their descendants living in Scandinavia and other places that the Vikings settled, such as England, Scotland, across into Russia, and right across Greenland and Iceland.
Any Aussie Vikings?
Well, you might be one.
Yeah, I could be one. In fact, I've got a bit of an idea. I need 2 volunteers from the audience, a boy and a girl. Let's turn them into Vikings.
Sure.
Let's have our first Aussie Vikings. Who's up? Who's our volunteers? A boy and a girl. Yes, down there. Yes, and yes. Come on up. And you guys give a rock star cheer for these 2 as they come on up. Make them welcome, yes? Come on up. Right, so the 2 of you look like average school students right now, but what I want you to do is I want you to walk with Dirk that way. I'm going to turn you into Vikings, all right? Good luck. The next time we see you, you'll be Vikings. Divide and conquer. That's a Viking joke. Okay, nah, some win, some lose, so what? All right, so Stephen, we've got quite a few questions coming in. I figured to learn more about Viking life, we've actually got Vikings behind us. Should we meet some of them?
Why not?
Yeah,
sure.
Please. After
Let me take you into the Viking Village.
The Viking Village. Whoosh. Here we are. Who have we got here?
So this is Heather, and Heather is really the head of the household of a Viking farm, right. The wife of a Viking.
Right, the trouble and strife.
The true head of the household.
Heather, lovely to meet you. First things first, what were you doing just there? What was that about?
This is a drop spindle, and it's how we would spin all our wool to make our garments. You would spin silk, linen, or wool. Right. It's the fabrics that were available.
You'd use that method to build the clothes that you're wearing now?
Yes.
How long would something like that take?
The whole process to make a garment, you're looking at 12 months.
12 months?
Yes.
A year to make clothing?
Yes.
It makes you think how lucky we are just to go down to the shops, isn't it? That's incredible.
It's
right, so what
easier.
was life like for a woman Viking?
There was a lot of responsibility on the woman of the household. She held the keys to all the storage, and made sure that everything was accounted for. She ran the land, so if the husband or the menfolk were off trading or fighting, the woman had to make sure everything still ran. And if you're wealthy enough, you would have slaves to help out.
Yeah, some pretty important responsibilities. What about these jewellery things here? I mean, that's not something you would just find on the ground. How were they made?
Well, different things. We've got my brooches, which are a sign that I'm a married woman. They also help hold up my apron dress.
Right.
You won't generally see any children running around with brooches like this.
Yep.
And they also hold up my bling.
Yeah. Yep.
So the beads are handmade. You melt the glass onto a metal rod, and then once it cools, you take it off the rod, and then you can thread it through.
They're all handmade?
Yep, all handmade. I've got a comb. My scissors.
And you would wear this stuff all the time? Is that something that you would wake up in the morning as a Viking woman, slap all that on, and off you went on your day?
As a wealthy woman, I probably could, because I have everyone else to do everything for me. Mm-hmm. If I wasn't so fortunate, then I would not be wearing all my bling all the time, because it would get in the way. Right. If you can try and imagine trying to wear all this when you're trying to cook.
Yeah, of course.
You'd end up half cooking your bits and pieces.
We've got a few more online questions coming through. What did Vikings eat?
Variety of things. We have turnips,
fresh
beets.
Apples? Don't mind if I do.
Generally, they were crab apples, a mixture of berries, figs. Had a variety of meats, pork, or pig, lamb, mutton.
And what would they cook in? How did they throw it all together?
Generally did a lot of stews,
yep.
So cooked in cauldrons.
Mm-hmm.
They had bread ovens to make the bread.
Mm-hmm.
Or on a skillet, or like a frying pan.
A frying pan, yeah, right. There's another one just come through as well. You guys are streaming through. Did Vikings have arranged marriages? That's a good question.
I'll pass this one to you.
Okay, pass it back to you. As far as I understand, there was some semblance of arranged marriages,
yep.
but I mean, one thing we should remember about the Viking Age is that it was women had a lot more freedom and responsibility than we think.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit more democratic until the later period of the Viking Age.
Right.
So,
Would you say that they ever married for love? Oh.
I'm sure they did.
They could certainly divorce.
Right.
Yes.
And they had divorce as
Yeah,
well.
a woman could divorce her husband.
But a man could not.
Oh no, a man could as well, but it's the only culture where, in that period, where a woman could divorce her husband.
Speaking of women, another online question here's just come through. Did Viking girls go to school?
It wasn't really much of a school. You'd be learning everything by watching and doing. From a very early age, you'd be learning to spin, and that's both boys and girls. You'd be weaving, you'd be looking after the animals, you'd be learning how to run a household as a girl.
Yep.
So from as soon as you're like toddler age all the way through.
Essentially, it's like homeschooling.
In a way,
Yeah.
yes, but you'd probably be learning the trade of your parents and your family. That's what you do.
Wow, interesting. And one more. Did women fight?
Yes,
They did?
yes.
Really?
Yes, there's written in sagas about shield maidens.
Shield maidens. Tell us about that.
Well, basically female warriors. They went off and fought and went trading just with the menfolk.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the Vikings travelled so far away for such a long period of time, they often would bring the family with them. Sometimes young-ish children, but also their wives. And if you're going to settle somewhere, you need to take the whole family.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
That's incredible. Well, Heather, I'll let you get back to it. I'm sure the villagers need your help. Give her a round of applause. Heather, rockstar, cheer. Nicely done. There's another one just come through. What did Vikings do for a living, Stephen?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. There's a range of livings. There's a lot of trades,
Yeah.
and it depends whereabouts you're talking, whether it's in Denmark or way up in the top of Norway.
What were some of the trades?
Well, you could be a blacksmith, for example, working on swords and weapons and metalwork, cooking pots, that sort of thing. You could be a carpenter, a shipwright, a farmer. Most of the Vikings really worked on the land,
Yeah.
and that was a key role.
Did they all live together, or were they quite separated?
In a way, quite separate. In the southern regions, they had smaller townships were built, but in Norway, for example, it was very much individual families living on farms, and they would come together collectively at certain times of the year, and that, but you know, that was really isolated.
Yeah, right. There's another one come through. How old were the children when they first started learning to be a Viking? So I'm not
Well,
sure if that's specific to women or men, but let's just say for a
yeah.
boy, how early does he learn to go into battle?
To be a Viking, and if we need to understand Viking as the word itself means going raiding or adventuring or trading, right? So to be a Viking, which it would involve being a warrior as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could learn from a very young age with wooden swords. So, you know, that military sort of learning happened from a young age, yes.
Right, so they would be learning how to battle very young.
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. There's a couple of boys in the audience that are like, whoa, give me a shot.
Yeah, it was very important in the Viking Age, the military nature of things, because of the conquest and the expansion of Viking culture, right? But, you know, it was just the same with most other cultures as well.
Yeah.
Like the Anglo-Saxons and everyone, their sagas talk about the, you know, great warriors, and their mythology is about the great warriors. But that was the same in a lot of their countries and areas of Europe, Western Europe. So they weren't just the only great warriors, you know, there was other cultures, but it was very important to the culture of the time.
Right, another one. Why did the Vikings constantly invade different areas?
That's a good question. Because they started off going to the east in towards Russia.
Yep.
And then they found better pickings into the west, in towards the UK, to Britain, Scotland, Ireland. Why did they do that? Partly for like opportunities. There was a lot of trade to be had, a lot of goods to be exchanged. But also partly they could plunder different places, and that was what we have, what we know about the Vikings. What the bad press of the Vikings is about how they were, you know, incredible plunderers. But it's a bit more complex than that. You know, they were also trading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. I wonder, in a camp like this, would you be in fear of being attacked by other Vikings?
Yes, that's true. That even Scandinavians themselves were a bit scared of anyone who was going on a Viking, because they were a bit unpredictable. You know, they'd been over to the east, they'd plundered, they were warlike, you know. So, and there was wars between Viking communities and different areas in themselves. That's true.
So we could be attacked literally at any point.
Well, yeah. So watch out.
Did all the male Vikings have to be warriors?
No, not at all. You know, it's very important to run the farm, but that's one of the reasons why Vikings took slaves in battle, because then they could take the slaves back to work the farm, and then they could go raiding or trading again.
Right. Were the slaves ever brought over to the other side? Were they accepted in the community, or were they just simply slaves?
Look, it's very hard to know the reality of slavery in the Viking period, but we do know there were differing conditions of slavery. And if you were a captured slave in battle, you had a better relationship than if you weren't.
Could slaves marry? There's another question from online.
As far as I know, yes.
Right. So they could become part of the community.
Yes, but still be a slave and signified as a slave. A lot of the archaeological finds of slaves' graves have not many materials in them compared to wealthy graves. And there's also iron collars that slaves wore to mark them out as slaves. Right. So a very distinct group of people.
Stephen, I got to admit, when you say Viking, the first thing that I think of is like swords and shields and battle and giant drumsticks of chicken. Sorry, I just got a bit carried away there, but you do have some of that stuff there. Should we have a look at it?
Certainly.
Yeah? Excellent, excellent. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of different weapons here.
Yeah, so we've got a range of what the Vikings would have used in combat. You know, from the classic long-handled axe or Dane axe,
right,
which could be used for chopping.
Yep.
Yeah. To
you would use that in battle?
Yes.
Well? Right.
Yes.
So do the weapons have everyday uses, or are there's battle weapons and then there's tools of trade?
Yeah, some do, like this smaller axe.
Yep.
Could be used for chopping wood or anything around on shipboard. But also, you know, for military purposes, yeah.
And this one's legit? Like, this is what you would find in the Viking era?
That's right.
Wow. It's quite heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Excellent. What else we got? I'm looking at those swords.
Yeah, the sword.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good example of a Viking-style sword, this style pommel. And
how good's
that's
that?
the sword
And
blade.
that's got quite a bit of weight on it too. Now, obviously, if you guys are watching in your classrooms and for you guys in studio, this is not actually legit, otherwise it'd be sharp. But it's the same kind of weight. And
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the materials that they use, where would they get the metal from?
Yeah, so they were mining iron in Norway, but they also traded it because it was very valuable. Everything was made from that at the time. And then what the Vikings were renowned for was their craftsmanship in making these things. Yeah, right. So a sword blade, which was one piece of metal, was forged together with other pieces of metal to make a stronger blade.
Yeah, right. And this would be used in battle?
That's right. But often not the first weapon of choice. A spear or a long axe, it was often a better weapon.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I would think that a sword would be able to chop the wood of an axe easy.
No, but don't forget, if you've got a shield, you've got to get over the top of the shield. With a sword, you haven't got that much reach. But an axe, you can go over the top.
Right.
And you've got a lot of weight coming down too.
It's quite strategic. Interesting. So you did mention before that you were going to turn me into a Viking. Just wondering if you want to do that now?
Yeah, why not?
Yes! That's what I'm talking about. All right, what do I need to do?
Okay, first step, you need to put on a tunic.
A tunic?
A thin Viking-style tunic, so just pop that on.
Yep. All right.
And then the next step is some mail. We'll call this mail, not chainmail. Yep. So have a feel of that.
Whoa, that is seriously heavy.
Yeah,
what
it's
is
quite
that,
heavy.
Like about 10 kilo?
About 7.
Wow, that's insane. And you wear that every day? Dirk, he's just like, yeah, I wear it all the time. I wear it to bed. That's awesome. So I'm going to put that on?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This
doesn't look like an easy task.
Nah.
So just slip your arms in there and lift them up.
Ooh.
That's it.
And up,
Over your
over,
head.
wriggle down.
And then wriggle, jiggle. That's it.
Wow. Is it always that graceful when you're putting on mail?
It is, always.
You wouldn't want to be, like, surprise attacked, would you? Wait, please. I just got to put my mail on. Just let me put my mail on. What else have we got?
All right, we need a helmet. Obviously, there's no horns on the helmet.
Yep.
Because that'd be quite silly in combat.
Yeah, right.
And it's designed to be conical for a blade to
And that one's
slice
metal,
off it.
not plastic.
That's right.
And it doesn't light up.
But so your head doesn't get too hurt.
Yep.
We'll put that on first.
All right.
And then pop that on.
Oh, yeah. And then we just
do
tie that up.
Yeah, do up a strap so it doesn't fall off.
We've got another online question come through, fellas. What language did Vikings speak?
So the Vikings spoke Old Norse.
Old Norse.
Yeah, and generally around all the Viking cultures, that was the common language. And a lot of that Old Norse language developed into the English language as well.
I was going to say, does Old Norse still have a place in our
Yeah, so
day and age?
afterwards you developed into, it sort of branched out into Danish, Swedish and Norwegian, which are very similar languages,
Yep.
but obviously they're the modern equivalents.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Stephen, I really like the mail and the tunic, but can I have some weapons, please?
Sure.
How do I look? You guys like? A very well-trained audience here.
Right.
All right.
So we'll give you a sword.
Yep, sweet. This is a boyhood dream coming to life right now. And then the shield.
The last piece of equipment, a shield.
So
In
I
the
hold that
hand.
left
That's it.
hand?
Yep.
Left hand. All right,
Very
can I
good.
I'm just going to be a little bit selfish. This is just for me, indulging. Ah! Huh? Huh? That's what you get when you warm your audience up. All right, enough indulging. Stephen, I'll get you to take that. That is seriously heavy, isn't it? Like you have to be pretty fit just to carry that around in battle. All right, I've been pretty selfish and indulgent, but we do have 2 volunteers that did get dressed up as Vikings. Can we bring them in? Can we bring them in? Give them a warm welcome and a round of applause, guys, as they come on in. Look at that. Look at you guys. Unreal. Talk us through that, Stephen.
Well, that's fantastic. We've got a young Viking male dressed in a tunic with breeches and shoes and a fur hat, like an Eastern-style cap. And a young Viking lady with a fur-lined cloak and a hood. Wonderful.
Again, all handmade. Dirk, you're not just a serious Viking warrior, you're also a bit of a fashion designer as well, hey?
You know, multi-talented.
Sorted them out nicely. I've just had a little bit of a light bulb moment, guys. Since we do have 2 eligible Vikings right here, and of course all the weapons, do you guys want to see a Viking battle? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Would you guys feel all right with the Viking battle?
Oh, give
All
it
right,
a go.
I don't like him much. Yeah, all right.
All right, well, as you get ready, I've got a couple more online questions, so if you feel free to answer that as you get ready. One says, did the Vikings have certain religious beliefs or gods? It's a good question.
Dirk?
Yes, in fact, they did. There was an entire pantheon of gods. Most people know, you know, the one god, but you've actually got a whole bunch of them. You've got Odin, Thor, Freya. Thor, yes.
As in actual Thor?
As in the movie, but not quite so much, because that's a comic book character.
Right, okay.
The real Thor is a bit different.
Okay.
So, for example, he's not blonde. He's got long red hair, big red bushy
hair,
beard.
right.
Yep.
Did he have that sweet hammer?
Oh, yes, he certainly does.
Yeah.
And he uses that to fight the giants.
So technically, is Thor a Viking?
Thor would probably be classified as a Viking, yes.
Ah, awesome. I like that. And of course, it's Thursday, so you could technically call it Thor's Day. All right, I'll let that one slide as well. What did Vikings do when they were sick or injured? Did they have medicine? Interesting.
Yes, they actually had people who specialised in using herbs and natural plants and different foodstuffs to basically act as medicinal purposes.
Right. And were Vikings good with hygiene?
Yes, in fact, massively so. There is a case that the Viking men were known for being very particular about their appearance and would actually wash quite regularly, and everyone would actually wash quite regularly.
Right. It's good to know. Why did the Viking era end? Now, that's a golden question. Nice work.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's many reasons why, but I think it was a period where the Vikings expanded around, you know, Western Europe in particular, and they had a few key points, and one of them was their shipping techniques, right? But then people caught up with them as well, and also militarily. So they couldn't do their surprise raids anymore. And the last of the big Viking Age battles was in 1066 at Stamford Bridge. And that's generally regarded as the end of the Viking Age, because after that there were no more. And that's the period we now regard as the start of the Middle Ages.
Forgive my ignorance, but after that battle, all Vikings just died.
No. they went back to Scandinavia and they didn't go out raiding and trading as much as they had done for the last few hundred years.
Right, and the last question coming from the online guys, what were some of the laws that Vikings followed? Oh, that's a good one. You stumped them.
That's a big question, because once again you have a situation where you've got a lot of different cultures and different timeframes. So the laws changed. Laws originally, you actually in Iceland you had a law speaker, and so when their Althing would come together, which was their big parliament, this guy basically had to, once again, oral culture. They memorised the entire laws of that society. So at the start of the Althing, this dude would basically recite the laws. That was his job. And every single law that they then created after that, he'd have to memorise to say next year.
He's like the ultimate presenter.
Absolutely.
That would have been my job. All right, here we go. So, battle time. I don't know how this is going to work. Of course, remember, guys, they are friends. This is just a reenactment. No heads are going to pop off. But just to be safe, how about the two of us? We'll just go behind this table here and make sure that we're a little bit safe. You guys want to assume your position? All right. Should we count them down? From 3 to 1. Here we go. You guys ready? Yep. Vikings ready? 3, 2, 1, battle!
Oh! Ah!
Oh. That's for real.
Ah! Ah!
Whoa! Oh, guys, this is a reenactment. Just be careful. Whoa! Oh! Oh!
Hey!
Oh! You got Stephen, no! Ah, our victorious Viking over here. Pardon me, Stephen. Nice work to Dirk. Give him a round of applause. And of course, our late and great. It is just a reenactment. There's no Vikings were harmed in the making of Splash today. Well done, Stephen. That's unreal. Good work, guys. You guys can come around and join us as well. Sadly, that is it for us here at Splash. We've run out of time. And unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to Midgard, but I want to say a massive thank you to Stephen, to Dirk, to all the villagers over here from Europa, of course, our volunteer Vikings, you guys over here from Public State School, and of course, thank you to you guys playing at home. That is it. Sadly, I say goodbye. I'm Kayne Tremills. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and we'll see you next time on ABC Splash. Goodbye!